Jake Dearden. He's only 25 years old, a former ultra marathon runner, one of the top HYROX athletes in the world. What do you focus on now?
Fitness is a very powerful thing. People say health's priceless, so is fitness. You don't just get fitter, it improves your whole life. First time I ever did a HYROX, I then went straight onto the start line, competed, and ended up slipping 2 discs in my back. Whenever I get a setback or an injury, I always shift the focus from trying to compete to trying to get better and healthy from the injury. Every injury is a blessing. It allows you to reassess your whole life, reassess what went wrong.
You got like a pretty booming social media presence. What's that been like for you, coming from civil engineer life into a space you're able to showcase the sport in a really unique way?
Oh, it's an absolute honor. Like I love doing it. It holds me accountable as well. It's very easy just to open your phone and see good results, and you don't see the bad stuff. So I've struggled with that a little bit as well. A lot of people talk the talk. I feel like you've got to walk the walk as well, and that's what I'm trying to prove. And I love documenting the highs, but also the lows and everything in between. Going from being good at a sport to then trying to become as good as you can be at the sport requires...
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Powers. Welcome back to the Whoop podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be sitting across from Jake Dearden, a former ultra marathon runner with a big passion for functional fitness, who's been able to combine these passions and become one of the top HYROX athletes in the world. Jake's only 25 years old, but has already locked up a handful of individual HYROX competition wins, as well as a handful of doubles wins, including the HYROX World Championship title last summer with the doubles. He's also a HYROX master trainer, and he's competed as one of the Elite 15, which we're going to get all into, which is some of the top HYROX athletes going head to head in their biggest competitions. So Jake is regarded as one of the top athletes in this new and extremely fun and fast growing community of HYROX competition. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
It's great to have you. So I guess right away, the first thing that we're going to do is go into some icebreakers. Are you ready for this? This is, you're just going to answer yes or no or true or false.
Okay.
All right. You ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. First off, true or false? Your average Whoop day strain of 15.7 is over 40% higher than the average 25-year-old male on Whoop. True or false?
True.
Good. Jake's strain is 15.7 versus 10.2. Not surprising. Not surprising. But anyone that's following along that's a Whoop fan is going to know that those are big numbers. All right. So yes or no, did you hit 3 consecutive 100% sleep scores leading into your HYROX Glasgow event?
I'm going to have to say no.
You did.
I did. I did. Did I? Seriously?
You did.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, leading into it, 312, 313, 314, you had 3 perfect sleep scores.
Oh, right. Okay. So I was thinking about the full recovery. I think of a 100% recovery.
True or false? You logged over 450 minutes of daily stress on your first day of Glasgow as well.
I'm not too sure.
Stress is like also like
yes.
intensity, like when you're working out.
Is that true?
It is. Yes, true. 465 minutes on 312, which is 7.5 hours.
Wow.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. You were moving and shaking on that day. Yes or no? Do you avoid working out late because it negatively impacts your recovery?
Yes, I really struggle to sleep. After I worked out, I really struggle to sleep. So I normally train first thing in the morning and then in the afternoon. So
that's also here. That's what it says. Late workouts also impacted your recovery when you did them by about 4%.
Which is very, very hard because, as people know, like the pro category of HYROX is in an evening. So when we get close to competition, I do practice at that time. So there's no surprises on race day.
True or false? Your resting heart rate, which Whoop has is 44 BPM, is 25% lower than your age group's average.
I'd say yes. Yeah.
You're right. Yes. Ding, ding, ding. 44 versus 57 beats per minute, which is about almost 25% lower. Let's go back a little bit. So that's just fun. That's just to get things kicked off, to like give some data and some stuff around kind of the person that you are and the Whoop metrics that go along with it. But take us back a little bit into your story about how you came into this space, into HYROX. I had read that you were going to school. I think you went to school for civil engineering. Is this right?
Yeah. So I started off, did 6 years doing civil engineering, realized that wasn't my passion. I think because of that, because it wasn't my passion, I wasn't very good at it. And I just didn't put the time into it. And I thought I was very lazy. But then I did have a passion in nutrition and kind of helping people to get to that next level within fitness. So I changed careers to become a personal trainer. Did that and I still coach to this day just because I love it. So I coach every morning when I'm back in the UK. Then HYROX came along. Always had kind of like a love of running, a love of being in the gym and trying to get strong. Before HYROX, there was CrossFit, but there wasn't really much else that combined the two. So when HYROX came along, it was like the perfect thing. So managed to become all right at it, and this is kind of transitioned. So I do a little bit of coaching, but my full-time career is becoming the best at HYROX. Well, hopefully, trying to get there. Being a HYROX athlete, yeah.
There's a something that I read where you bought. I don't know how the exact timeline of it went, but that like kind of went together where you might have quit your job and bought a ticket to a HYROX event like 5 hours away off of Facebook, and you entered.
Yes, I did. Yes, there's a couple of occurrences that happened. You know, the first time I actually ever did a HYROX that happened, but then there was a second time a little bit later where I did it, and then I actually bought one 5 hours before, and then did a 4-hour drive from Manchester to London to compete. Silly idea, because I was sat in the car for 4 hours. I then went straight onto the start line, competed, and ended up slipping 2 discs in my back. So it wasn't the best of competitions. I definitely learned from that.
Yeah, crazy story. But for anyone that doesn't know about HYROX, can you just tell us what is HYROX? Like exactly 60 minutes, kind of all out, but like all these different things. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so the actual whole goal of a HYROX is a fitness race. So there's 8 runs and 8 stations, and these stations are different. Every single one's different. They're all functional fitness exercises. So there's ski, there's sled push, sled pull, there's row, burpees, farmer's carry, walking lunges, and wall balls, and they're all split up by a 1 kilometer run. So I think the average time is 1 hour 32 at the moment for it to be completed. The elites are doing it in under 1 hour. So it's kind of this race it's an endurance race at heart, but it requires strength. So it's not just pure endurance. It does require you to be in the gym and to be lifting weights to get strong, to move certain objects. Yeah. So
what about the community aspect? Because when I see online, there's a lot of people doing this all together, which I think is, gym always is like that. Like, hey, I got a, spot for you. I got to do this. But the HYROX thing feels like it's definitely got a real community vibe.
Yeah, for sure. It's so accessible as well. So if you look at all the exercises of HYROX, like they're very easy to learn and they're very low skill, which invites a lot of people in. After a bit of practice, you get good at it, and this kind of can create a base for almost anyone to compete at a HYROX. And then the community element just adds to it. I think that's what gyms were potentially missing a couple of years ago. Obviously, there was specific gyms like CrossFit gyms and group training. You've got your Barry's boot camp and things like that. But in regular gyms, there wasn't any community aspects. Like you'd walk into a gym, everyone would have their headphones on. No one would speak and they just lift weights. Whereas now, like there's these HYROX classes going on where, it's loud music, everyone's working out together, and it's just a good vibe and atmosphere. It's a very efficient workout. Like, a HYROX workout, like you're getting stronger, you're getting fitter within the hour. It's really good for kind of like the everyday person. And that's what's built this community, I think.
Yeah, and I was saying in the intro, like it seems like it combines the things that you love, because the ultra marathoning stuff, like I'm curious about that, how you got into that, because that's not for the faint of heart. That's hard business.
Yeah, and I think it definitely has its place in building mental strength. I think how everyone kind of gets into it at my age is listening to podcasts and hearing about the likes of David Goggins and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just a crazy challenge to see how far you can run. Yeah. So when I was younger, especially, I loved to do ultra marathons and try and test the mind. Recent years, I've switched more to performance. I think that's where I'd like to be, and that's where I enjoy a little bit more. I wake up and I don't feel as old. It's like doing ultra endurance sports, like you're hobbling down the stairs in the morning, because at the end of the day, like you're pushing your body so extreme, like it's going beyond just getting fit and healthy. It's so taxing on the body, and it can lead to big injuries. So I prefer to go more down the performance route now and try and just get good times in the sports that I'm doing. I
read that you did the Berlin Marathon.
Yeah.
You ran it in under, I think, 2:28 it said.
Yeah, 2:28. I managed to run the Berlin Marathon last year. The sole focus was to actually get better at running for HYROX. I decided to have a goal of sub 2:30 because this worked out in kilometers. It worked out as a 30-kilometer pace, which is what I needed to run my runs in HYROX to get into the Elite 15, which is kind of like the best tier of HYROX. I thought, well, instead of just being able to run an hour at this, I'll try and run a marathon at that. Somehow managed to pull it off. Yeah, a lot of work went into that, a lot of skill practice, and just kind of like science as well. You know, as you'd know, dropping weight is super beneficial when it comes to power to weight ratio and looking at the science behind it.
Yeah. This is not your first foray into this kind of thing, because I was saying the ultra marathons, but you also, I read that you did like something insane where you did like a 100-kilometer run. And I think, is this right? And you also said it was like one of the hardest things you did.
Yeah, so I've done 100 kilometers quite a few times. I've done 100 miles, and 100 miles was tough. Yeah, that was very tough. And then I also did 10 marathons in 5 days, so 2 marathons a day for 5 days, all for kind of like charity. But I think the hardest thing I have ever done is the 100 miler, which ended up being 116 miles. And I think that's probably why it was harder than what I thought, because I got into it thinking I was only going to run 100, and then it was self-navigation. So we got lost quite a few times, and it ended up being 116 miles. So it was tough, but we got through it, and we're here to tell the tale.
You said something there that I also kept kind of coming back to, and it seems like one of the things that really makes you tick with both of these sports is inspiring people. I kept gathering that from what you were saying in some of your other interviews and some of the other stuff that you had written, is like that this is the inspiration for other people and for doing stuff for charity and things like that is a big thing that makes you go. Like, what's that coming from?
Yeah, I think fitness is a very powerful thing. You don't just get fitter. Like, it improves your whole life. Getting fitter might improve their health, for one. It might improve how they look, which then improves their confidence. They then do better in their life, you know, and they're a happier person. So fitness is this kind of door to something so much bigger. And I think everyone should feel it. Like, you know yourself from being a professional athlete, like how good does it feel when you are the fittest you've ever been? There's nothing that beats it in the world. No. Do you know, people say, health is priceless, and so is fitness. If I can document my journey and, show not just the wins, but the mistakes and the losses and kind of like the hard learnings, and it inspires someone just a little bit on their own journey, then that's I'm happy.
How about like combining these things? Because now you're taking that, really like that mental toughness of doing these ultras, doing these very long and like really intense runs and like all of this stuff that's come together for you. And then we're now taking all this strength work and we're combining that. You're a bit of like a warrior in this way. Old school athletes would just say, hey, I'm just a bike rider. I'm only doing, rowing, or I only do this. You're kind of like tearing up the script. And I think we're seeing a lot of this, like MMA fighters, but we're also seeing it now in like things like HYROX and such. You're combining cardio, endurance, like VO2 max and strength. Is this the new way forward, or is this like something that's completely unique and probably not going to be replicated?
I've kind of witnessed like to a little extent everything that you've just said there, where you just focus on strength work, but then you get tired walking up the stairs. You feel super strong, but you get tired walking up the stairs. And you just focus on running, and then you feel frail and weak. There's always like downsides, where I found like training for things which include strength and fitness, like it is the best of both worlds. I have had my challenges along the way, like as like doing ultra endurance stuff and pushing your body so hard, you're learning to ignore the warning signs that your body tells you. You're running through pain, literally running through pain. If your knee's hurting, you just ignore it, and you learn to ignore it. Mm-hmm. And, then something else hurts, and then something else hurts. You're battering your body, whereas training for performance, and you've got to be so in tune with your body. It's kind of like a struggle, because I've spent so long teaching my body to ignore the signs, and then now I need to take every single sign that I feel and assess that. And going forward, it is kind of that's where like I've struggled really, and that's why I probably have been injured a little bit more than I should be, especially at my age. I think it is the way forward, as long as you have a solid plan in place and you're not overtraining, because it's so easy to do so much strength and then so much endurance and just think, I'm just going to train 2 training programs. It's not like that. You've got to you've got to look at it carefully.
And do you think for a HYROX athlete, do you think it's important to have like a big VO2 max? Because I was reading a lot about HYROX and just this idea that running under pressure in the sport that I did, cyclocross, you often have to go through like really heavy, muddy sections. And then you have to carry like a 35, it could be 25 to 35 pound bike on your shoulder and run and then get back on and go back again to your like functional threshold. And I think a lot about like this kind of running aspect of HYROX, which is different than any of the sports that have really come before. There's this cardio and kind of VO2 max element that really makes it a unique beast that's like doing this type of thing. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's important to have a big VO2 for HYROX, or does it help? It couldn't hurt.
Yeah, it definitely couldn't hurt. Like the higher it is, the better, obviously. I'd like to ask you this question actually, because whenever I've done the research and into VO2 max, because HYROX athletes they are very lean, but they're not the lightest people on the planet. I genuinely find like endurance athletes that are lighter have a better VO2 max than the guys that are hitting the gym and have a little bit of weight behind them. So just for anyone that doesn't know, like a HYROX athlete in the elite field for a male, they're weighing anywhere between 75 and 85 kg, some even closer to 90 kg, which, when you're lean, it is quite a bit of muscle and quite heavy, especially compared to like people with the best VO2 maxes in the world. When you're looking at like triathletes and stuff like that, they're a lot leaner and they're a lot lighter than that. So it's interesting, but like I've not got the best VO2 max. I know quite a lot of other people in the Elite 15 haven't got the best VO2 max, and there's a lot of people that have better VO2 maxes that don't do as well at HYROX. So it's a very hard one.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there too, like lactate buffering, and then like what's your lactate capacity, like how much lactate can you take on, like like your mental training, like how much pain can you sit in, like there's a lot that goes into it.
It'd be super interesting to go to the other end where like you see CrossFit athletes where it's a lot more strength orientated, like see what their VO2 max is, and there's probably be less than HYROX athletes. But wherever you are at with your VO2 max, it doesn't hurt to increase it and to get better at it. Like that is a measure of fitness. If you can improve it, then your times are going to come down.
Yeah, I was just trying to think about all the endurance junkies that might think about HYROX as like I can't do this anymore to my body, and I need to get stronger for my longevity, and they're like want to come over. So you heard it here. Jake said you don't need to have a crazy VO2 max to get into HYROX, and you can still have fun with it. How about mentally, like the prep for this? As a competitor, like I had to do all kinds of work with sports psychologists and just like getting into things. But what's been your experience with this new sport? Like HYROX has been coming on like a freight train so fast. So many new things are coming. Like if we ask 20 people on the road, a bunch of them probably won't even know what HYROX is. Like it's that new, but it's coming. But like for you, what's it been to experience this level of like notoriety and success, and also like going into the competitions? What's it been like to get into this? Like it's pretty well publicized now. I mean, they're doing like live streams. They got a lot of content around it. Like I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety and pressure that goes into these events.
Yeah, it is blowing up, and everything has skyrocketed. The amount of people doing it, the amount of people watching. So when you're on that big stage, and you're at the majors or the world championships, and you've got so many people tuning in or watching you live, it is a lot of pressure. But for me, I always just try and keep to the same routine and then just take it in, because you never know how long you're going to be here. I think that's what's great about HYROX. Like everyone is so happy for you. No one wants anyone to lose. Like everyone just wants everyone to do well, which is pretty cool. Like even the guys that you're racing, like we all want fast times. Whatever he gets, it doesn't really affect me unless he's coming high up. It's a pretty cool sport, and I think that takes off the pressure a little bit. But yeah, just taking it in, visualizing the race beforehand. I'm
curious about it just because you're coming from a sport where it's like bike riding is the same. Like you're pretty introverted. You like can put your headphones in and go in and just be like in your own little world for a very long time. Like, hey, I'm gonna go do a 6-hour ride. I'm gonna knock out 100 miles and 10,000 feet of climbing, and I'll see you later. And then like you don't need to talk to a single person. You don't need to wait to a car. You don't need to do anything. You just go away. And that's like kind of how I envision like marathoning to a certain extent and some of these other ones. But like in HYROX, it's more arena style. There's people watching you. There's timers. There's like, different people that are making sure you're doing things the right way. Like it's a little bit of a different sport in that regard.
For sure. And I think it's the way that you look at pressure and the way that you perceive pressure has a massive impact on how you actually perform. If you think pressure is negative, then you're never going to perform well. You're going to crumble under it, because there is someone watching you at all times within a HYROX. There's no breaks from the spotlight. If you then turn that around and think, it's a privilege to be under pressure, and think pressure is a good thing. Like if I'm not nervous, then what's the point in doing it? And if you think, just be grateful for being there and being in that position, then I think that just gives you confidence. For me anyway. What about yourself? Do you know, how do you deal with pressure?
I mean, like a decade of sports psych, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one because you're always, you're always trying to evolve, always trying to become better. It's never that easy to just think it's a one day thing. It starts weeks before, and you really got to, learn it. I always said you need to be in a position to be able to win a big event or a big title or whatever, before you actually win one. And that was true for most of my friends. Like, the really talented ones that kind of had more talent in one finger, they were working with something different. So they might have been stressed, but they were still really good. I think for some of the more, mortal people, they had to be in that position, like staring at a championship or a world championship or a title. And then they came back and they won it again after that. But I think it's something that you grow into. No one's really, I think very few people are born with that killer instinct of like, oh, I can take this on and nothing bothers me. Like you're either green to it and you make mistakes, or you grow into it and you learn how to deal with the pressure. You do realize that it's a privilege to be in that position.
On that note, how have you dealt with setbacks? Like, because you must have had some setbacks within your career.
Yeah, those are always the hardest ones, aren't they? But that's also kind of like where you dig in and learn. You're the people that really can support you. I had quite a few injuries, especially like when I first got going. Not enough base, big volume, and bilateral tendonitis. I got valley fever when I was young, which is like a fungus in my chest. It really made me super sick.
How did you get back from that? Because you can't even help that.
Yeah,
you just kind of
time.
get that and just time. Is it gutting when you can't compete and you've got to pull out of competitions, or do you know?
I think when you're in that position, when you've got like a bilateral tendonitis, one that's a little bit more actionable, because I was a pro and I was making a living from it. I called the best person that I had access to. They were in Utah. I was in Massachusetts. I called another person that I knew that was in Utah, and I asked them, could I come stay with you? I don't know the amount of time, but can I come stay with you? You're close to this doctor. Went in, saw the doctors, and they made a program. When I got there were like 7, 8 doctors. They looked at everything that was going on with me. They made the plan. I was there for a month, and then I was back on my bike. They knocked down all the little gremlins that were in my that was in my Achilles, took down all the inflammation, gave me like a good rehab PT daily, like twice a day, and set me on my way. So like, it's also about, finding, I think, the resources that can help you, whether it's sports psych or it's a good crew.
I think it's being proactive as well. Like you could have just sat back and just felt sorry for yourself.
Yeah. But
instead you went and did everything that you can. Yeah. Like you literally just went more than out your way. Yeah. Like you literally moved in with a friend for a month.
Well, that's what it is. What it takes at the top. Yeah. If you want to be an outlier, then you got to do outlier type things. And like, if you want to be the best at something, there's no one that's just going to it's not just going to happen for you, I think. And, it's definitely like the points in your career where there's like certain things that just happened, I think is really like, oh yeah, it just doesn't happen that you run a 2:28 marathon. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of actions that go into being able to do something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And for me with that, I think it's first believing in it. If you don't believe in it, it's not going to happen. Yeah. The 2:28 marathon, I actually got quite a bit of hate when I announced it. People were like, this kid can't run this. He's 3 to 4 years off this. He's, his 10K is only 34 minutes. So it's impossible. Like scientifically, it's impossible. But you've got to kind of take all that and be positive and use it as fuel rather than just sulking about it. You've got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Or have people around you that believe in you as well. I think that's a big thing. I don't know if you had that, in your career, like, having a team. Like recently I found the value of having a team around you. If you look at any elite athlete, they've got a team. It's not just a one-man band. No. Everyone's got a team. But that team doesn't have to be, you don't have to be paying everyone. It could just be a friendship circle. That's it. That are really supportive.
Yeah, it's a bit of a momentum loop is what I always used to call it. Like this idea that once you get a bit of momentum, it starts to funnel behind you and you like start to pick up steam, and then, you get a good team, and then you get some more results, and then the team grows, then you get more confidence, and then, you work on one thing and that thing becomes a weakness, becomes a strength. And then before you know it, you're like in the HYROX, Elite 15 at a major, and you're doing really well. It's like these things don't happen on their own, but over time, that's kind of the beauty of a career.
And I think I'm just at the start of it, hopefully. So we'll see how it goes.
You are at the start of it. So talking about like the events and like the going into them and stuff like that. You mentioned earlier that you're like, oh, it's hard for me to sleep. Like I can imagine with a late night, I mean, also, for competitions that I was in, like when we would race at night, we would also do like races in Vegas. They'd start at 8:30 at night. You take caffeine gel before, and then it's like you do the podium, you do, champagne. It's like you have some food with friends. It's 1:00 when you come back at night. And it's like, man, like it's going to be hard to go down. But you guys do them, like there's like, these are multi-day things where you guys come together. So, we kind of talked about the stress, but what about your sleep strategy at these events and leading into it? The 3 days at 100%, I found to be super cool. And I've heard you talk a lot about like how important sleep is.
Although it's boring and it's completely free, like I think that's why people don't prioritize it, to be fair. But sleep is the most important recovery tool. Like, you're only recovering really when you're sleeping. I try and get 8 hours every single night. And then leading up to an event, I will sleep in, which seems like the opposite of what you should be doing. And I think I've struggled with that a little bit as well. Like going from, just being good at a sport to then trying to become better and as good as you can be at the sport requires you to recover more. And that means switching it around from getting up at 6 a.m. to train to staying in bed till 7, 8 a.m. And people are like, oh, well, you don't work hard. You're not getting up at 5 a.m. You're not doing this, but it's another form of working hard. And that's for me, that's sleep. And every elite athlete will tell you that.
Yeah.
That sleep is the most important thing. So before kind of like competition, I always try and get 8 to 9 hours like the week of and try and sleep as much as possible. Have naps in the day, stuff like that, especially because you're deloading. So you're not training as much. Mm-hmm. So you have more time to do that. And then when it actually gets to the competition, like I said, it's exactly what you said. It's late at night. So you're having caffeine before because like that is probably the only day that sleep goes out the window. Like mm-hmm. you don't care about what you sleep that night because you've got to perform, and that's what you train for. You'll have your caffeine before, you'll then compete, and then you'll then wind out. But it might only be 8 hours after you've had your caffeine that you can actually get to sleep, right. Which it normally is for me. So I'm up till 4 a.m. normally, which is a struggle. But if I'm competing multiple days in a row, then I'll just try and sleep in as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, you do a good job because we have your data here. So it says that you get average 85% sleep performance and you have about an average of, like you said, 7.5 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I mean, that's more than most people, I think. Like a lot of people are trying for that, but they're not able to do it. Yeah, I guess like off the back of that, and what else we saw was that when you did exercise, and I talked about this in those fast break questions, when you did exercise late at night, like you had like a poor recovery the next day. So it is clearly a thing for you that you've identified, and like through some of the Whoop stuff that we have, you've been able to say like, hey, the metrics, this isn't working, but also like, I just know that it's also not working because I don't sleep well if I work out. But in general, it sounds like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I'll have a cutoff for when I try not to stop exercising like before 6 p.m. So then I have a couple of hours and then I'll probably go to bed like 9:30, 10.
Do you think nowadays like we have a bit of an unfair advantage over previous generations with all the tech and like stuff that we can learn from this?
Yeah, definitely for sure. But like you look back at like all the books and like bodybuilding blows my mind because with all the stuff on nutrition at the moment and with the wearable techs and stuff like that, like they were doing that back in the day without potentially even knowing about it, or maybe they did know about it, but they were doing that, and it's it does get recirculated. But now we can track everything black and white, rather than just being that grey area. Am I doing the right thing? No one knows because you can't track it. Now you can track it, so it's more black and white than grey.
Back in the day when I was in Belgium, they'd just be like, oh yeah, you eat horse meat. Like that was the thing that they're just like, yeah, you eat horse meat. It's like, why? They don't know. That's what we do.
I love that.
I don't know why, but we just did. Turns out it was like probably because we were all emaciated bike racers and we didn't have any like ferritin or iron in our blood. And so who knows? It's still
yeah. It's interesting. We were talking about it actually with the electrolytes. When you were younger, you'd have some water with some orange juice and a sprinkle of salt. Mm-hmm. And you're like, now that's an electrolyte drink, like, but you didn't know why you was having it. You just had it. And now, like, all the science is out.
Let's talk a little bit about like competition prep and I guess like a little bit of fueling, because everybody now has like a way that they're fueling for these events. And obviously like what you're doing for the HYROX competition versus maybe like the marathon that you're running or these ultra distance events that you've done is quite a bit different. You've got to have some like metabolic flexibility going on there, like some, you'd be able to take on the carbohydrate versus like stack, for HYROX. But I'm curious to know what the difference is in your fueling strategies versus, a big endurance event versus a HYROX.
So we start with the big endurance event. Because you're going for a long duration at a low intensity or relatively low, you can consume more food on the go. So if I was to do an ultramarathon, I'd actually start off with whole foods for as long as possible. When I say whole foods, I mean like sandwiches, things like that. It's like not gels, basically. And I try and keep to food for as long as possible. And then if I was struggling with like digestion issues or anything like that, or if I didn't want anything, then I'd switch to gels or like liquid drinks. Whereas HYROX is completely different. You carb up beforehand, which you probably would do for the longer distance stuff as well. But you then don't eat for 3 hours before the event, and then you might have a little bit of carbohydrate right before, just to increase the glycogen in your liver, and then you go on and you compete, and then halfway through you might have a gel. Something just fast acting. But generally, like, because it's only an hour event, if you fill up your glycogen stores, then you can go for the full event without needing any more carbohydrates.
If you're thinking about like some stuff that I guess like people would do, if someone was going to do a HYROX event for the first time, because maybe they'll listen to this, they'll be inspired by this, what would you suggest? Like, hey, don't eat right before it. I know for like my competition, it'd be like, hey, I got to have at least 2 hours, like maybe even 3. But what do you typically do for like a routine on the day? Yeah. I know you're later at night, but you said you coach a ton of people, so maybe you give some tips to people that are coming into it.
For sure. So if you're new to HYROX and you want kind of like a nutrition strategy, first of all, we always say nothing new for race day. You probably did that as well, and that means nutrition. It means clothing. It means footwear. Like, you need to practice everything beforehand, and it's all trial and error. Generally, the rule of thumb is you want something high in carbohydrates leading up to the event. You probably want to be eating lots of carbohydrates up until probably 2 to 3 hours before, and then you need to let all that digest, and then you go on and compete. With HYROX, you're working at between 80 to 90% of your max for the entire thing. So you need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are going to be the primary fuel source. Like, if you do a low carb diet and you're just relying on fats, they just can't be converted fast enough to energy. And I think the data says at the moment, I think it's 65% of your max that you can work when you're just using fats. So we need carbohydrates in the system.
It's okay. So carb it up.
Carb it up.
Yeah.
But, how I like to do it, it's nice and simple, and it's not probably what you think. Like, when people say carbing up, they'll probably, the night before, they might go for a big Italian, they might go for a big pizza. In my opinion, don't do that unless you do that regularly. I'd much prefer if you just had the same meals that you normally eat, but you just increase your carb source. So say, for example, you have chicken, rice and salad, you just double your rice, and you do that for every single meal. If you're having porridge oats in the morning, then you increase the amount of porridge oats. You're carving up, but you're eating the same foods, so your stomach's not surprised.
A little UK language there, a little porridge. Love that.
What'd you call it over here?
Oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
We got some oats.
Okay.
Some oatmeal over here.
Meal.
Anyways, we were looking at the HYROX Glasgow data. We were kind of digging through this as a little bit of, as you came in, as a big event that you did, a major. And HYROX, I believe there's 4 majors that you have to compete at one of them to be able to go on to the World Championships. And you competed in Glasgow, which allowed you to go to the World Championships. So we're pulling some data, and we noticed that when you went into it, you were in the green, but that, after, of course, a lot of output, you end up in the red, like over a couple of days. I'm sure this adds up where you see this, but like after the competition, you bounce right back to like a 93% recovery. So like basically it's like come into the green, a hard workout, red, and then like, one day with the mental freshness, with everything, bounce right back to the green. Curious to know like how much you put into that, how much you expect that, like how the Whoop data maybe gives you a little bit of insight into like what's going on with your body. And as you use that as like someone that's just kind of like a second or third person in the room with you, between your coaches and yourself, and like how you use the Whoop data a little bit to think about what you're putting out and like overtraining, undertraining kind of thing and output?
When it comes to training, like I will open it up on a daily basis. Generally, if I'm in the red, I assess and look at what I've done over the past couple of days, kind of like a body check, just to see like if feel like I'm coming down with something. And I have an honest conversation with my coach, and maybe we just go easy that day if it's meant to be a tough session. Hopefully that kind of clears it and we get back into kind of like the orange/green. But I like to look at it on a weekly basis as well. And if I don't have many greens over a week, so if I don't have any good recovery scores or over a week, then I start to think what's going on, and maybe that's when we need to take a little bit of a deload, or take some volume out, or just like say the intensity, or focus on recovery. Maybe I might slack with my recovery. So it kind of just keeps me in check. Like you said, that third person in the room. I've got myself, I've got my coach, but then I've also got the data that can show me if I'm slacking. And for me personally, it just keeps me in check with getting enough sleep. It's so easy just to stay up that extra hour and watch that extra episode on Netflix. That's where we've got to be strict if you want to perform at your best. Getting that consistent sleep schedule. And one thing with Whoop that I find is super interesting and will affect your recovery scores a lot is the times you go to bed and wake up. So if you're traveling a lot, generally my recovery scores in the bin because you're moving time zones, and even though you're still getting 8 hours, it's not the same 8 hours, and that makes you feel sluggish. You get less REM sleep, you get less deep sleep, and this puts the recovery score down. So that's where I struggle the most with the traveling. I don't know if you've got any advice for traveling. I would love to hear it.
I still live in the airplane. I don't know if anyone's got it nailed fully, but I know it for myself, like sleeping, going into these flights and like going to Europe. I've been going to Europe even with like Whoop work. I've been going to Europe like twice a month sometimes, which is tough though, because you realize like, man, one night of missed sleep, whatever, But yeah, like taking the later flights when I'm already tired, and then also slowly trying to get onto that new time zone by, doing like good sleep hygiene, taking it seriously, getting into bed when my kids get into bed. That's like the difference. Like, hey, I say to myself, Jeremy, you could do this extra 2 hours of work from right now, from like your kids are in bed 8:39, you could go and work till 11 p.m. I can do it. But if I go to bed right now, like 8:30 with them, I'm so much going to be in such a better position when I go to Austria next week or whatever, because I'm like thinking, okay, they're 6 hours ahead from here where we are in Boston. So I try to think like that a little bit, like, hey, can I take care of myself, and can I, clear 2 objectives, and like, what's the path of least resistance? The path of least resistance is getting into bed now. I'm trying to get ahead and trying to get on that new sleep time. So yeah, it is discipline though. Like you said, everybody's, scrolling on the phone, keeping up with their friends, responding to a lot of text messages. We're, I guess, connected as ever, but it's like, the discipline is in saying no to stuff. It's really hard. Yeah, even for me.
It's so hard, isn't it?
And as an athlete, it's your job. Like that's what you're getting paid to do. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is. It's a crazy world when the hardest thing to do is to relax.
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing that like people struggle with, is relaxing and sleeping more.
I wanted to ask a couple of quick questions to you about some injuries, some lessons learned, and some like longevity and stuff like this. So I'm curious to know about some of your injuries because you noted them earlier. I want to know like a little bit about the ones you've had and like some of the big ones and what they were.
I've had quite a few injuries kind of in my sporting career, but the biggest one by far, which I'm probably still not fully recovered from, is I herniated 2 discs in my back. L4, L5, L5S1. When I did this, I was actually in a HYROX competition. I was doing wall balls and I slipped 2 discs, and it was that severe that I couldn't walk for a month, couldn't work, couldn't do anything for a month, and it took me 6 months to recover to get back on that start line. So that was tough, but I got a little bit of advice off someone throughout that kind of experience. It was, every injury is a blessing, because it allows you to reassess your whole life, reassess what went wrong. So unless it's a freak accident, you was ignoring the signs for an injury normally. Maybe your life was out of balance, maybe you were training too much, maybe it's just time to reevaluate your whole life. And for me, it was even more than that. It was because I had a month off work, I actually changed careers after that, and I joined a new gym and a new kind of line of work and stuff, all from this injury. everything happens for a reason, and injuries are a blessing.
It's crazy because, yeah, you've done like some pretty serious things. You said like marathons back to back. You've done 100-mile, turned out 116 miles. You did a 228 marathon. And you're doing these HYROX events, and then like, yeah, and then that's the injury that gets you. It's kind of weird, but it sounds like maybe there wasn't maybe a foundation, and then that gave you time to reassess. Like, do you think that's a thing of like your mindset is like you like to push yourself? Because I think I remember this was when you tried to do 11 HYROX back to back to back to back.
So that was actually what I did to recover. So I set that challenge to recover. So I did a one-off HYROX, and before this, like I say, I was running ultramarathons. I was doing stupid stuff, and I was teaching my body to ignore pain.
Okay.
And ignore the warning signs. And then my body came to a halt. And this was when I slipped 2 discs. So from that point onwards, I've been trying to become more in tune with my body. Probably say I'm super fragile as kind of like an athlete now. Do you know, I feel everything. Every time I'm run down, my back's sore. But it's a bit of a warning sign. And it teaches me that maybe I'm overtraining. Maybe I'm not taking my recovery seriously. Maybe I'm traveling too much. All these things add up, and now luckily I get warning signs in the symptom of my back hurts or it aches. So it's pretty good. But I always, whenever I get a setback or an injury, I always shift that, similar to you, always shift the focus from trying to compete to trying to get better and healthy from the injury. As long as you have that focus and you keep super consistent, it keeps you busy. Like, it's tough doing 2 hours of rehab a day plus all the recovery, everything else. Like, you've been through it. Like, it's still a lot of work, and you've got to be consistent with that. And if you don't, then it's not going to get better. So
the worst is when you do all the work and then you don't get to show anything for it.
And that can happen as well. Like, but that's in life, isn't it? With everything.
Name of the game.
Yeah.
It's brutal to like put all that time in, and then you go onto the competition floor, and it's like, it's just, I hated that. And I know a lot of athletes that go through this. You go into the big race and Tour de France or whatever, first day, stage, boom, on the ground. Like, that's it. You've been in a whole season.
Your life, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the Olympics is 4 years.
There you go.
Building a business, it might be 10 years.
That's
it's in every walk of life.
I guess with that, like, what do you focus on now? What do you want to improve on? Like, with this idea that I definitely don't think that there's any fragility, but I appreciate like very much that you're taking like hey, I need to really think about every single aspect. So what is it that you really want to work on now? What is the focus for you in the next 6-12 months?
My focus is fully on trying to become the best HYROX athlete I can be. With that in mind, at the moment I am suffering a little bit of an injury, so my aim is to get back healthy and then progress, but progress in a way that I stay healthy. I'm not fatigued all the time, and I'm not on that brink of overtraining, which when you're training for a multi-discipline sport like HYROX, like triathlon, like it's very hard to not overtrain, because you're doing so many things and you feel like you need to do so much volume of everything, and just trusting that it will be enough. And you don't need to do them 2 hours extra every single day in the gym. It's a hard one though. Like you probably suffered with it your whole life. To an extent. Yeah.
What's coming up for you next? Obviously getting better. You have to recover. You have a small, I think like a calf injury or something at the moment, right?
After that, I'm going to be competing at the first major in Hamburg, hopefully.
Cool.
So that'll be the first kind of like HYROX race.
When is that?
Next season. And that's in the start of October.
Okay.
So that'll be
quite a bit of time.
The next big race, yeah. So get fit for that.
Quick question on just like your social media. A lot of cool content on there. I guess your handle, your name, Jake Dearden _, right?
Yes, that's it.
You're talking to everybody. I mean, everyone's on Instagram, but what's that been like for you, coming from, yes, kind of like civil engineer life into like you're a pretty well-known name in the space, leading a lot of the people that are following the sport. And yeah, you're able to put that up on a pedestal and showcase the sport in a really unique way. What's that been like for you?
Oh, it's an absolute honor. Like I love doing it. It holds me accountable as well. Do you know, I think a lot of people talk the talk. I feel like you've got to walk the walk as well. Do you know, and that's what I'm trying to prove. And I love, like I say, documenting the highs, but also the lows and everything in between. Like I think it's important to do that. Today on social media, it's very easy just to open your phone and see all the good results, and you don't see the bad stuff. So it's important to me that you get both sides.
Jake Dearden, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the show, and wishing you all the best and everything to come, man. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much, mate.